Hey, welcome to Ship Nuggets. I'm Mokwede here. How y'all doing? Hope you're good. Have you ever been in a leadership followership relationship, whether you're a leader or a follower, and you feel like you're not getting the best out of that relationship? You feel probably shortchanged. You feel like maybe somebody's getting the better part of you, and you're not excited about the relationship. Guess what? We're going to talk about how we can make the most of our leadership followership relationship and how we can get the best from it. See you soon. All right, welcome again to Ship Nuggets. We are talking leadership, we're talking followership today, and basically just talking about how do we get the best or make the best out of our leadership followership relationship. Listen, the reality is this, that you and I are constantly either playing a role as a leader or playing a role as a follower. In other words, we're either leading or following. Sometimes simultaneously. I know from my own experience, I've been in situations where I'm leading and following at the same time. You can ask my wife and she'll tell you. Anyway, the reality is that many times we come out of those relationships or we exist in those relationships and it might be the leader, it might be the follower, one of the parties might feel shortchanged, might feel like, well, what's going on here? I don't feel like I'm being maximized. I don't feel like I'm being appreciated. I don't feel like I'm growing in my purpose. That these are questions that I get or comments I get a lot when people are in a work setting. And again, you don't necessarily have to be engaged in this relationship just because you want something, right? That makes it really transactional. But the reality is that we should be, or we're supposed to be thriving in our leadership followership relationships. And I mean, this it cuts across all levels, or even in the political scene. In several countries, I'm sure the citizenship can sit down and assess themselves and say, am I really getting the best out of this deal here? Or am I being shortchanged? Am I being taken for granted? Am I being looked over? And then in some cases, the leaders are like, well, these people are so incompetent. These people are not pulling their weight, this, that, and the other. So both ways, both sides. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that both sides can have some kind of frustrating response to the relationship. But let's talk about how do we bridge the gap instead of building gaps. One thing that I've found from my experience in leading and also my experience in following is that there comes a time where gaps in that relationship exist. Just like in any relationship, gaps exist. One person might have a direct, might want to go in a direction that the other person may not want to go into. One person might be insisting on processes that the other person might not really want to engage in. One person's character and behavior may not necessarily gel with the next person. How about culture? There may be cultural differences that happen, that occur within that relationship. And what does that lead to? It leads to conflict. See, every time there is a difference, a gap between leaders and followers, there is a potential for conflict. I didn't say there'll always be conflict, but there is a potential for conflict. And sometimes conflict is good. Sometimes conflict is good. You have good conflicts where it leads or it yields to positive conversation, feedback, and everybody kind of gets to know where everybody's at. So there's times that there's a place for good conflict, and conflict resolution skills are always very important in those scenarios. But I'm kind of talking today from the standpoint of a leader who wants to maximize his relationship with the followers or those that work with them, and a follower or employee or whoever who wants to maximize that relationship with the leader. So the first thing I would say is seek to build bridges. Seek to build bridges. And I know this may not sound popular. I know this may sound like la 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 kind of what's the word I want to use, like wishful thinking type of desire. But I tell you, if you're going to really benefit from that relationship, you have to seek ways to build bridges and not build, not to bridge the gap, rather, not build the gaps, so to speak. So, how do you build a bridge? How do you build the gap? How do you close the gap between the leaders and the followers? So, culturally, there are things that exist, in terms of leadership structure. There's one that is called power distance, and mostly in African, sub-Saharan Africa, the power distance is very large. Power distance means that there's a big gap between the people that have the power and those that don't have the power. And so there's this dynamic that occurs there, where people with power, they have the power, and people without power know they don't have the power. And so there's a gap there, and that affects the way people relate with one another. Now, in European countries and in North America, the power distance is actually pretty small. It's low. So those that have power and those that don't have power, there's not much of a perception of difference in that way. So what you want to do is you want to find out what the environment is like. What is the environment where you work? Is it high power distance environment, or is it an environment where there's more of a participatory type of leadership? It depends on where you live. It depends on the environment that you're in. So, kind of look at your environment, look at your context, and I talk about that in my book, Following Well. Look at your context and examine where you are. And once context has been determined, you on your own, okay, let me talk first as a leader. As a leader, you have to minimize the gap through your communication. There is something called communication intelligence. I mean, like, I never heard of it, but I read a book about it. Like, you have to know how you communicate your goals, your desires, your dreams to those who you are leading. And the biggest mistake that leaders make, and I think that it's to no fault of any leader, because we think sometimes in leading that every follower, every employee is the same, and that it cannot be further from the truth. Just like leaders are not the same, followers are not the same. You are leading people from different backgrounds, different places. So the way you communicate, even though there are generic ways to communicate to everyone, especially if you lead a lot of people, but there has to also be an attempt to uniquely identify the people that you're leading and communicate to them, especially those in your middle management, those that are in your inner circle. Communicate with them with the understanding that not all of them are the same. Okay, not everybody's the same. Not everybody's going to take your aggressive posture. Not everybody's going to. And there's some people who are visionary leaders that like to push and say, we're going to do this. Listen, not everybody's going to be that excited about the vision. So you have to know how you communicate with everyone so you can carry everybody along. And then as a someone who is being led, right? Somebody who is being mentored, who is being led, a follower, so to speak. You have to see the purpose in your being there. Because I always say this, that if you are in a space, there is a reason why you are there. And if you do not know the reason why you are there, you will be abused in that situation and you will abuse the situation. So you have to get clarity on purpose. Why am I there? Why am I being led by this person? Now, I've had somebody, some people challenge me on that. They say, well, you know what? A follower doesn't have a choice to choose who leads them. Sometimes, leaders just appear and, you can't really choose who leads them. And what you just need to do is to be courageous regardless. Now, that's true in some settings where you come in and, you're not able to choose who leads you. But I guess the thing that I'm trying to say here is that even if you are not able to choose your leader, if you find yourself in a situation being led by someone, there is a bigger person that instituted our ability to follow, and that's God. There's a bigger reason. And this idea of I'll just do whatever I want to do. I'll just stay in this place. I'll just allow these people to walk over me. It has to be preceded by your understanding of your purpose in life. Why am I there? Why are you sitting there in that job? What are you doing there? What's the purpose for your being there? And how do you factor in purpose into your response in your relationship with your leader? And so once that's very clear, and sometimes, to be honest with you, it's not always going to be 100% clear, but when you get a little bit, 50, 60, 70% clarity on why you're there, then the next thing is you have to see the big picture. Always see the big picture. Like, I'm talking about building gaps now. your boss might be charismatic and not necessarily relational in their approach. They may be task oriented, but you have to see the big picture and say, how can I get closer to this person? So your own communication style has to be worked on as well, but you have to see the big picture, and then you have to bring solutions to the table. Bring solutions to the table. Like, again, it's not even about just bringing the solutions, it's how you bring the solution. You must have a repertoire of solutions. Because the reality is that not all solutions are going to be accepted. And even if they're accepted, not all solutions are going to be implemented. So you have to have a repertoire of solutions, excuse me, that you bring to the table. But at the same time, you know that whatever you bring to the table may not necessarily be accepted right away. So I'm seeking ways to build bridges instead of, create gaps by presenting solutions and knowing in the back of my head that even if these solutions are not accepted or implemented, that's okay. I have other solutions. I'm going to bring some other solutions to the table. That's one way. Communicating back and forth, making sure that you're on the same page with your leader. And this goes both ways now, making sure that the goal at hand is clear. That's how you can get the benefit of this. Seeing yourselves as teammates, as a part of a team. And I see this a lot because when there's this tension between leaders and followers, there's this idea that, oh, you're not part of my team. I'm not part of your team. I'm the boss and you're the subordinate. So, hey, we're not on the same level. So, da, 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 da. And what that creates is this tension. And what happens thereon is that you're not going to be able to maximize that relationship. But when you find out, when you discover or realize or accept that you are all a team, even though people are playing different roles, it makes it a little bit better in terms of the, experiencing the success within that relationship. So communication is key. Clearly understanding that people are not the same. They are different people from different backgrounds, different understanding, different perspectives, treating people with respect and honor, and then making everything clear. Make sure that there's clarity in your communication. Make sure that there's understanding that you are all teammates. You are working together to accomplish a purpose. And then the last thing, again, like I said, there are many, many things, that many ways. Maybe I'll do a part 2 of this to discuss other things. But for now, I would say empowerment. As a follower, you have to empower the leader to lead you. You have to allow them to lead you. And then as a leader, you have to empower the people that you are leading. I can't say this enough. If you really want to get the best out of leader-followership relationship, either as a leader or as a follower, that word empowerment is crucial. You have to learn how to empower if you're a leader. You have to learn how to be empowered if you're a follower. And then you have to know how to work within the parameters of that empowerment. Because empowerment are in levels. You're not going to just get empowered right away. It's going to be in levels, and it's going to be dependent on the level of trust that's been created over time in some instances. But if you're going to survive and grow, there has to be empowerment. And maybe we'll talk about it again in another broadcast. But these are just a few things that I want to just talk about. How are you building the bridge in your leadership followership relationship? Now, there are some times from my experience where there's been a project and I know that I've not been in communication with my leader, and I just take it upon myself to communicate. Like, just go ahead and send an email or send a text and say, hey, thanks, I'm working on this, that, and the other. I'm just trying to brief you on what's happening. And there are times where, as a leader, I just say, hey, I'd like you to do something for me, or you to do something and start handling this thing and empower them. So it works both ways. So these are just a few things to begin that I've seen from my experience on how you can begin to enjoy this wonderful relationship and success in the leader-followership relationship. I hope that encouraged someone. I hope that blessed someone. Please feel free to post questions and comment on what you've heard so far. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Share this. I want to get more information, more comments, and feedback and questions, so we can make this even more of a livelier broadcast and conversation. All right, so well, till I see you all again, let's keep saying bye, everybody.